Hi guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going to have a Derrick Lewis fight showcase, and this was requested by a subscriber in my last video. So if you do have any content suggestions, please let me know in the comments below. And before we get into the actual video, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone that's been supporting the channel lately and all the new subscribers. At the time of recording I'm on 119 subscribers, so yeah, it's coming up to around a year of me doing YouTube, so I'm extremely happy with the rate we're growing at, and it's good to see that we're forming a little community. So yeah, just want to say a big thank you to everyone. But getting into the gameplay, so as I was saying, this was requested by a subscriber in my last video. Derrick Lewis, of course, he's known for his knockout power, most knockouts in the heavyweight division, and you know what's going to happen when you use him. And we're coming up against Tavizia here, and this was extremely good of my opponent because I'm not sure if I'm going to show the loading screen, because otherwise the video might be too long. But as we were loading, selecting the fighters, he was on Stipe Miocic. Saw that I picked Derrick Lewis and thought, let me just probably make this, more of a fair fight, and he picked Tavizia. But as you can see, he's starting to grapple straight away, which is exactly what you've got to do if you're coming up against Derrick Lewis. It's just a bit strange considering the fighter he's using. But nonetheless, he's got the takedown in the first round here. It's a 5-round fight. And with Derrick Lewis, of course, the one thing that's really good about him, and that did surprise me, was his reversals on the ground. He's got very good reversals, and he's also got extremely good ground and pound. So if you do wind up on top of your opponent, even if it isn't after a knockdown, like in this situation here where I reversed my opponent, you can look to stay on the ground for a bit and look to do some ground and pound. Of course, you're not really going to get any submission finishes unless your opponent's got terrible submission defense or they're just extremely tired. And he does have some pretty obvious weaknesses. His leg health isn't great, cardio isn't great, he's not really built for 5 rounds, and he's quite stiff as well. But you know what you've got to do when you're using Derrick Lewis. But in a 5-round fight, you've got to probably be a bit more patient than you'd like to be. See me, you'll see throughout the gameplay that I'm very relaxed. I'm not looking to throw too much because I don't want to gas out, and I'm trying not to take too many body shots to really affect my cardio. And you've also got to look out for leg kicks, and that right now a lot of people don't use leg kicks too often. I think the more I'm seeing it in real life, obviously after the Justin Gaethje fight, and for instance when Dustin Poirier was using leg kicks against Conor McGregor, I've seen people try to emulate that in the game, but a lot of people don't really look at it as a really useful tool, which to me is quite shocking because it's one of my favourite tools. But it kind of works out in the heavyweight division. So because he doesn't have great leg health, as long as people aren't leg kicking my legs, I'll be okay. And as you see, I'm being extremely patient, and see how powerful the uppercut to the body was there. We go to do it again and he gets the stun. Good head movement there, not looking to get knocked down, and again just looking to recover here, trying to create some distance. But obviously with Derrick Lewis' fighting style, I do need to be in boxing range because he's predominantly a boxer. Like I said, great knockout power. It's just about finding the punch, and as you can see, my opponent's trying all sorts. He's noticed I'm going to the body, so he's throwing a lot of flying knees, which that is to be expected. If you keep going to the body, the flying knees are a very useful tool in counteracting that. It also counteracts takedowns very well. But as you can see, dodged the head kick again that my opponent's been going for. Went for a roundhouse to the body, which wasn't the best idea with Derrick Lewis. I'm trying to keep it strictly boxing here, and with heavyweights obviously there's less margin for error. So if my opponent does make a mistake, I can really capitalise, and because Derrick Lewis does have the power, he can really put people to sleep with just one punch. So you've got to be extremely careful, because say for instance I go to throw a leg kick and I miss and he throws an overhand right, that could be the end of the fight just because of the huge power. And as you can see there, that shot to the body sent him flying, which is just a credit to Derrick Lewis' power, I suppose. But right now I'd say we're getting the better of these exchanges, although my opponent did get the stun in the round prior. And with Derrick Lewis, I'm not really trying to have 5-round fights, if I'm honest. I just wanted to get my opponent out of there as soon as possible. With that being said, obviously when you are in the higher divisions, your opponents do know how to prevent that. They'll grapple, they'll keep distance, they'll keep it a kicking range, and all those factors will draw out the longer round fights. You could go into championship rounds. So with that being said, I have to be cautious about stamina, which is why, as you can see, I'm not unloading too much, even though I want to get the fight over and done with early. And these fights here were the only 3 I did use in Derrick Lewis. So I'm going to have this fight, and then a Stipe Miocic fight, and then a Alistair Overeem fight. I done these 3 and I thought, okay, yeah, that's enough. I didn't want to lose points, because I knew sooner or later we're going to come up against someone that just holds me down the whole fight. And that is, you know, the way to beat Derrick Lewis, is either you're going to have to keep the fight at kicking range, and opponents which will cause, you know, big problems would be someone like a John Jones, again, Stipe Miocic, Curtis Blades, even though he slept him in real life. But these fighters, they're not great matchups for Derrick Lewis, because they can just take the fight to the ground, hold him there, or they can keep it at a range in which Derrick Lewis has to get into that, past that kicking range, in order to have any sort of success. And right now, you can see that with my opponent, I'm keeping the range just out of his boxing range, so he's overcommitting, and then when he does, I will hit to the body. And my opponent's doing a good job now of mixing in these roundhouses to the body. As you can see, I'm starting to step back now to sort of counteract that, because I don't want to take too many shots to the body. Stamina is very, very important on the game, not just for the sense that you can throw loads of combinations, but it's important because it helps you recover. The more stamina you have, the better off and more likely you are to recover. And at heavyweight, where the slightest of things can knock you out, recoveries are extremely, extremely important. And as you can see, I can throw a leg kick there with absolutely no speed. Like I said, I'm a big leg kicker. Go for an overhand there. And obviously that's going to be one of Derrick Lewis's best punches, is the overhands. It's one of the punches he's I think it might be a 5-star, his overhand. So I tried to throw it there, see if I could land. Double hooks to the body. And one thing I noticed is, if you can, but it is obviously extremely dangerous, when you throw double hooks to the body, it really, really hurts your opponent because of Derrick Lewis's power. Not only that, but I feel like just his body shots in general, the uppercut to the body does so much damage. Obviously the clip earlier where it sent my opponent flying across the ring. And that's a tool I was really trying to utilise. And often or not, when I come up against Derrick Lewis, I've never played a patient Derrick Lewis, even though I've been in quite high divisions. So when I'm facing a Division 20 opponent, they're using Derrick Lewis. Often or not, they're just there, going to try to brawl me. And obviously that makes sense, because obviously you want to get the fight over and done with quickly. But when you use him patiently, if you've got good takedown defense, he could cause a lot of problems. Obviously, styles make fights, but just because of how strong and how dangerous and that knockout power he has, you know, he can do damage. And even if you get taken down, like I was saying earlier, if you manage to reverse the position and you get up on top, his ground and pound stats are phenomenal because of his power. So you can really work and hurt your opponent. And right now, my opponent here, I'm controlling the centre of the octagon. I'm keeping the range at the range I want, and my opponent's really struggling. See, we go for a front kick there. He taunts, and I didn't want to just overhand and knock him out, so I sort of let him have his taunt. 2 knees to the body. You can see the body work's really paying dividends now. Again, beautiful uppercut to the body. And again, I'm being patient. There comes the overhand to get the drop. We get up on top here. I was going to look for a ground and pound finish, but I opted to get up and look for a knockout instead, potentially. As you can see, doing a good job here. Get up again, forcing my opponent to get up. He goes for the overhand. As you can see, he's really gassed now, and there's not much my opponent can do. He's really just trying to find that one-shot power, and we're just picking him apart slowly. Get another knockdown here. Get up again. And like I said, I didn't want to get a ground and pound finish. I was hoping just to get a clean knockout. He goes for the flying knee, expecting me to go to the body. And as you can see, extremely patient. This is a new version of Derrick Lewis, like Patient Ngannou. This is Patient Derrick Lewis. And as I was saying, it might be the best way to use him, because people expect you to just go in there and just brawl. So if you show them a new look, if you're patient, if you're selective with your strikes, if you work the body and work the head, occasionally throw a leg kick, although I wouldn't recommend it. You have to, it's contextual. You have to see how your fight's going, because if you throw a leg kick against someone that's got really good movement, and then they move out the way and hit you with an overhand or head kick, then, you know, more likely or not, your fight's going to be over. And, you know, Derrick Lewis doesn't have the best of leg kicks. Coming up against the Stipe Miocic player here, who's in Division 14. Of course, this was last season. The season's just reset at the time of me recording this. and it reset just in time for me to get Division 20, I think. So I just hit Division 20, logged back on today, and the division's reset. So yeah, another grind coming in now. And I thought rather than me get new videos of me using Derrick Lewis, I'd rather use these ones here of me, you know, when I was trying to reach Division 20, fighting higher division opponents, because obviously when you start the divisions again, everyone starts off at Division 0, and I'm not sure the skill level I'm playing against. And in my gameplays, I do like to show gameplays around fighting fighters that are, you know, pretty good at the game. And as you can see, we've got the knockdown here early on. This is a 3-round fight, so it's more suited to Derrick Lewis. And I'm just going to tee off on the ground here. It's going to be the opposite of what I was doing in the last fight. I'm really going to look to get this ground and pound finish. And this is what I mean when, with Derrick Lewis, you can sort of be comfortable when you're on top. Obviously, he's not going to have the submissions, but he's got good ground and pound. And even on the bottom, just because of his reversals, they're so good that I'm not too worried. As long as I keep standing up and then I get a deny, he'll end up flipping them anyway. And I'll end up on top, and then I can look to get up or, like I say, deliver some ground and pound. So when he is on the ground, it's not like he's rendered useless. He does have good qualities. You've just got to be a bit more patient. Obviously, he's not going to be the best on the ground. And yeah, that makes sense because he's not a ground game type fighter. He's not a grappler. He's there really just to knock your head off. And in real life, he has that special trait where he can just ground game just doesn't work against him. He just opts to stand up. And I always think that's hilarious when Derrick Lewis fights and he just bench presses people off him and gets up. It's like he decides that, okay, we're not going to be on the ground anymore, I'm getting up. And coming into this gameplay here, we're coming up against Alistair Overeem, and this is more of a difficult matchup. And the reason it is more of a difficult matchup is because the leg kicks, the knees, the head kicks, the elbows that Alistair Overeem has, the clinch, stuff that I've got to be very, very careful with. And as you can see, already throwing spinning attacks. And cardio is going to be extremely, extremely important in this fight. I've got to look to keep it high. And I can't take too much damage because when you come up against, this is prime Overeem here. He can just melt your guard with the elbows, clinch you, work the knees to the body and to the head. You can also throw the switch kick, throw the jumping front kick to the head. He has such a wide range of arsenal of attacks that I've got to be extremely careful because Derrick Lewis, like I said, I'm predominantly using him as a boxer. So I'm just looking to box, and I don't want to get into a kicking game with Alistair Overeem. And in order to get to Overeem, I'm going to have to break that distance to get out of the kickboxing range and into the boxing range. And the easiest way of me doing that is I either wait for Overeem to overcommit and then punish him and step into that range and keep it there, or throw a double jab to enter the pocket and then look to do some work from there. But the game plan in this fight here was, like I said, I've got to be extremely careful, and I'm going to look to do as much damage as possible to my opponent's body. And as you can see, he's going for the clinch attempts now, he's going for the elbows, going for the flying knees, and it makes it extremely difficult. When you fight a good Alistair Overeem player, it's always going to be hard, but when you're using Derrick Lewis, who sort of doesn't have the skill set to compete in a kickboxing range, and when you step in, you could get caught and get damaged. So it's about being very careful. You see, I'm being a bit tentative, I'm being a bit patient. He's throwing oblique kicks now, and I'm hoping that my opponent's just going to overcommit and I'm going to hit him with something. I'm going to really look to work the body and break down the block. As you can see, my opponent just stood there for some weird reason. But when we are in boxing range, I do feel really confident. My opponent's throwing these big shots and overcommitting, and he's starting to go for takedowns here. So it's going to look, at this point in the first round, I was thinking, right, this is going to be a very challenging fight because my opponent's just going to keep this at kickboxing range, and whenever I step in, he's either going to punish me with knees or elbows or just shoot a takedown. And like I said, you don't really want to be on your back with Derrick Lewis. We'll work to get into the sprawl here, and I'm very comfortable in this position because I know if my opponent tries to move to either side, as long as I've got the stamina advantage, I can reverse it, or eventually the referee will stand us up. And this is a very good anti-grappling position, and it's what I look to keep here. We managed to get up, he goes for the elbow on the break, and as you can see, he's shooting these takedowns a lot now, throwing overhands. The only benefit I can really see of this is that my opponent right now is wasting stamina. We get the stun there, and obviously with Overeem, even though it's his improved version, the chin health still, isn't going to be the greatest. And with Derrick Lewis's power, you can't really look to mess around. So after that first round, we got the stun. My opponent did get the takedown and some control time, so it's interesting to see how the judges will score that. And as you can see, he instantly shoots again. He obviously tasted that power and didn't want anything to do with it. And realistically, this is how most of your fights will go, and this is the reason I am showcasing this gameplay, because I could have kept it at the other two gameplays, the one against Stipe and the one against Tyre, but it's not realistic. This is a realistic representation of what's going to happen when you are using Derrick Lewis in the higher divisions. People are going to take you to ground, even if they're using stand-up fighters, because they are scared of that power. So as soon as it isn't going their way, they'll shoot a takedown and look to control you. And you can't really blame them, because it doesn't make sense. You're fighting someone that's predominantly a boxer. You get them to the ground, you're going to have a huge advantage. And as you can see, I opt to get up because I don't want to keep the fight on the ground any longer than it has to. I stunned my opponent in the last round, so I know he's there to get hurt. I've just got to do a good job with my head movement and watch out for these takedowns. I snuck in a leg kick there, just to give my opponent something else to think about. And as you can see, I'm being extremely cautious. I'm throwing and then trying to move my head off the centre line, not trying to get caught with anything. We're breaking down my opponent's block here slowly but surely. You see, he just wiggled his right stick and avoided about 2-3 punches. He lands a good roundhouse to the body, and that's what I've got to be cautious of, is roundhouse to the body, the knees to the body, the switch kick. And then he throws that jumping front kick which gets the stun. And that kick is so annoying. Whenever I come up against an overeem player, that always somehow works on me. So that's something that when it happened, I was annoyed with myself with. I should have expected that. But now it's just about being patient, avoiding any more damage, and I'm looking for that big shot. I'm trying to get a stun at least, or a big knockdown to give me the edge in the round. And he gets the flying knee here. So as you can see, this round is going poorly. He's taken me down. He's got 2 stuns. And as it's going, it looks like that the round's going to be secured by my opponent. So right now, I've just got a damage control, look to mitigate how much damage I'm taking. As you can see, I'm still trying to press because I know my opponent's there to be hit. I'm just sort of waiting for him to unload and then clipping with something as he comes in. And then a beautiful uppercut as he went to the body. And that's exactly what I was waiting for. As I said, I was being patient. Now we're whittling away at the block. Go to the body there, and look how quickly the rounds changed there. My opponent had 2 stuns, and then we done some impressive work there. And we end up on top of my opponent here, deny the transition. And that should have been enough to turn the fight around there. That round should be mine now, as long as I don't take any more damage or my opponent doesn't finish me. And like I said, I was just being patient. I knew the opportunity was there. He went to go to the body, uppercut, and then I pressed him real hard just to see if we could get that round back. Unfortunately enough, as you can tell, it did work. We did not end up getting the knockdown. And it's one thing you've got to choose. You've got to be very selective when you unload. There I had a good feeling, so I really emptied the gas tank trying to knock down my opponent because he wasn't moving his head. And when he did move, I was catching him with the hooks. And the block was slowly breaking, so I knew that I could really unload and get the drop. And that could have turned that whole round around now. So that round the judges could give to me. And that's extremely important in a 5-round fight. And as you can see, the work we've done in the round prior now, towards the end, after we'd been hurt, has really come in clutch because my opponent's head health now, it's not going to take much to get a stun. Done a good job there, checking the leg kick. And I'm feeling a lot more confident that I can really put my opponent out. And like I said, I'm just being patient, waiting for my opponent to overcommit. I know a takedown's coming relatively soon, because he's not going to look to keep the fight on the feet for much longer, especially if I'm whittling away at that block and the head health isn't where it needs to be to take Derrick Lewis's shots. Because if your head's hurt and I'm teeing away with Derrick Lewis, it's only a matter of time before you get dropped. And as you can see, I'm getting these stuns easier and easier. Beautiful head movement there to avoid the overhand right. Then we went for one. He goes for the flying knee, which we block. And the fight's sort of at a weird point now, where round 2 he was having great success. Obviously he had the 2 stuns with the jumping front kick and then the flying knee. And then in the last sort of minute and a half of that round, I went to work, hit him with that beautiful uppercut when he was going to the body. Then we ended up getting the knockdown as a result of a constant flurry of punches. And now coming into this round, we've had, I believe, 2 stuns. Obviously he's got the takedown here, but the judges really favour damage. So I'm not too worried about if the fight stays here, because, you know, the longer it stays here, the referee's going to stand it up eventually. I tried to get up, but as long as he doesn't get a submission or do too much damage, this round should be scored to me, because the judges, like I said, they favour damage. And yeah, this is a very realistic fight, because this is exactly what's going to happen if you use him online ranked. I'm not sure about quick fight because I don't really play it. I'm sure there people don't really grapple too much, so you might be able to just stand and bang with Derrick Lewis. As you can see, we threw a leg kick there, which, like I said, I wouldn't advise throwing too much of, but he did get the stun. And my opponent then rocked me, and as you can see, he emptied his gas tank trying to get that finish. And one thing about Derrick Lewis is his recovery isn't the greatest, so once you do get rocked once or twice, it is going to be rather difficult for you to recover, which is why I'm keeping the importance on stamina being as high as possible. So yeah, my opponent did get a stun back, but the only good thing to come from that was my opponent emptied the gas tank real hard with relatively no success. So I know that his stamina's not in a great position right now. It's just getting lower and lower. And my stamina, considering I'm using Derrick Lewis, is in a relatively good position. You know, I could still unload if I hurt my opponent, and if I need to go for a finish, I've got more than enough stamina just to, you know, tear through and throw like a 3-4 punch combination. And yeah, not much left in this round now. So going into the next round, I'm just looking to build off these successes of this round and the round prior. And I've got to start stuffing these takedowns, because otherwise the fight's just going to drag out even longer. But like I said, this is realistic. This is how it is going to be on ranked. You're not going to have many people that are going to want to stand and bang with you. Even if you're fighting someone that is a technical striker and they're lighting you up, say they've taken out your leg, they've hurt your body, and it's the 4th, 5th round, Derrick Lewis still has that one punch power that can put people to sleep. So often or not, people aren't going to chance it, and that's just being smart. That's having fight IQ. There's no point leaving it to chance when you can take me down and hold me. And yeah, that is what your opponent's going to do. So you've just got to look to stuff the takedowns, go in and out of ranges when you can, look after your cardio, and when you have your opponent hurt, only unload if you feel like you can really get them out of there, which is what I did in the 2nd round. In the last minute, I believe, is I hurt my opponent and I thought, right, I can really rinse his block here and get a knockdown out of it and end up winning the round. So it's about being selective. And as you can see, I'm still being patient, and the only thing that I'm doing that I wouldn't recommend doing is have my back towards the fence. And when you're coming up against people that want to grapple you, they'll just clinch you, put you there, and then take you down, which is why I caught that kick and then worked my opponent towards the fence, letting me control the centre of the octagon. As you can see, I moved away there because I knew a big strike was coming from my opponent, but we've ripped him to the body a lot there. Checking the leg kicks, and that's one thing we've done a good job of with this fight. I knew my opponent was going to go for an uppercut. We then go for a body uppercut, and now my opponent's on the back foot here. He's getting pressured. As you can see, he's trying to regain control of the centre of the octagon, but he's using strikes that are wasting his stamina. And as you can see, going for the big overhand, it's like he knows he's down on the judges' scorecards. We go to the body there. So he's being very careful. He would have hurt me real bad with that uppercut if I went to the body, which is why I went to the head. If you rock someone to the body, they're going to expect you then to go to the body and just throw an uppercut, and if it hits, it will do a lot of damage. And as you can see, when I'm throwing, I'm noticing my stamina's going down quite a bit, which is why I'm stepping back, because if I overcommit with a strike and then my opponent hits me, I will get knocked down, and my opponent could potentially finish me, which is why you'll see that I hurt my opponent, I'll step away, and look, this is a prime example. There I even had full stamina pretty much, and he still hit me with the uppercut, and it still really hurt. So that's why when I am unloading, I sort of step away, regain stamina, and then re-enter the pocket and try to hurt my opponent. And right now you can see that my opponent doesn't really know what to do. There's only about 30 seconds left in this round, and I can really pressure him here. If he's not throwing back, the block's slowly breaking. We knock him down here. We get on top, and I believe we get the ground and pound finish here, yeah, with a weird camera angle. So we get the finish there against the prime over him. This was me, obviously, a fight where, like I said, it's extremely realistic. People are going to look to keep it at kickboxing range, take you down. So hope you enjoyed the 3 fights here using Derrick Lewis. Yeah, it's extremely challenging. Thank you to the subscriber who recommended me using him. Hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, please like, comment and subscribe. Any content suggestions, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll get around to recording that. The next video will be a Derrick fight showcase, so I'll see you then. Thank you.